I still hear the click of my phone before I remember the scream. It was late afternoon in Boise that hour when the sun slants low and everything looks deceptively calm. The dishwasher hummed. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied. I was standing at the counter rinsing blue paint off my hands when the door camera chimed on my phone. One sharp vibration, one soft click. That was the second something in me snapped. Because I knew who it was before the image even loaded. I knew the way the porch would look. I knew the posture. I knew the storm walking toward my door. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, if you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. What happened next is exactly why silence nearly cost my son everything. My name is Lauren Pierce. I'm a single mother. And 3 Fridays ago, my family crossed a line they can never uncross. Inside my house, my 10-year-old son Evan was crouched on the living room floor, lining up wooden sticks with surgical precision. Popsicle sticks, blue tape, a metal ruler laid flat like a promise. His shoulders were hunched, his tongue tucked into his cheek the way he does when he's thinking hard. The overhead light buzzed faintly. He didn't notice the door camera. He didn't notice me watching him like I was trying to memorize his face. My nephew Mason sat across from him, knees pulled to his chest, eyes bright. "So if it drops from higher," Mason said, "it breaks faster." Evan didn't answer right away. He pressed the tape down, smooth, clean. Then he nodded once. "Unless you spread the impact." He didn't say it like a lecture. He said it like a secret. I leaned against the counter and let myself believe just for a minute that this was how things were supposed to be. 2 kids, a living room scattered with harmless mess, a house that felt safe. It hadn't always been. 10 years earlier, my husband died on a job site when a scaffolding bolt failed. One phone call, one sentence, one empty chair that never filled again. Evan was barely walking. I learned how to survive in increments, one grocery trip, one bedtime, one quiet breakdown in the car where nobody could see me. My younger brother Kyle stepped in then. At first, he showed up with casseroles, fixed my fence, held Evan on his shoulders like nothing in the world mattered more. His wife Brittany smiled at me with the right softness, said all the right things, told me I was strong. That phase didn't last. It changed slowly, the way poison does. Evan started reading early. Math came easily. Teachers sent emails that made my chest tighten, not with pride but with dread, because every compliment came with a look from Brittany. Every achievement landed like an accusation. "Oh, he's lucky," she'd say, lips curved just enough to sting. "Some kids have it easy." Kyle never corrected her. He'd just shrug. "You know how Britt is. She's competitive." By the time the boys were 8, I stopped talking about school. I folded awards into drawers. I told Evan to keep his notebooks in his backpack. I taught my son without ever meaning to that brilliance was something to hide. He learned fast. That afternoon, Mason had been dropped off with a backpack and a rushed explanation. "We've got a counseling appointment," Kyle had said over the phone. "Last-minute cancellation. Can you watch him a few hours?" I didn't ask questions. I heard Mason breathing on the line. I said yes. Now the 2 boys were working on a project together, an egg drop challenge. Build a structure that keeps a raw egg from cracking when dropped from height. Evan hadn't taken over. He hadn't grabbed. He'd asked questions, let Mason mess up, let him try again. Mason laughed when the first egg cracked, a loud, unguarded sound. Evan smiled, not the tight smile he wears at family dinners, but the real one. The one I hadn't seen in years. Again, Evan said, "We can fix it." The door camera chimed again, louder this time. Evan flinched. I didn't. I dried my hands on a dish towel, slow and deliberate. The image on my phone showed Kyle on the porch, jaw-tight eyes already burning. Brittany stood behind him, sunglasses still on even though the sun was dipping low. Her arms were crossed. She wasn't smiling. The knock came hard, not a knock. A demand. I opened the door. Kyle didn't say hello. He didn't look at me. His eyes went straight to the living room floor, to the blue tape, the ruler, the careful lines. His face changed in real time. Something ugly crawled up his neck. "What is this?" he said. Mason jumped to his feet. "Dad, look, it worked." Evan showed me how to. Kyle cut him off with a laugh that wasn't a laugh. Of course he did. Evan stood slowly. He wiped his hands on his jeans. "It's Mason's project," he said. "Quiet. Steady." Brittany stepped inside without asking. Her heel caught on a stick. She kicked it aside. "So convenient," she said. "You always need to be the hero, don't you?" Evan's shoulders tightened. I saw his fingers curl into his sleeves. That was the moment I knew he was bracing. The way kids do when they expect pain. "Kyle," I said, "lower your voice." He didn't hear me. He moved fast. Too fast. 1 second he was standing by the door. The next he was in Evan's space, grabbing the structure, ripping tape and sticks apart like it was trash. "You think you're smarter than everyone else?" he shouted. "You think you can just take over?" Evan stumbled back. His heel hit the edge of the rug. He caught himself on the cabinet's shoulder, slamming hard enough to rattle the drawers. That sound, the hollow thud of bone against wood, cut through everything. Mason screamed. "Dad, stop," I asked him. Brittany didn't move. She tilted her head, watching. "He's always manipulating," she said calmly, "just like his mother." That was the second something in me snapped. I stepped forward, 1 step, then another. My phone was already in my hand. The screen lit my palm blue. "Touch him again," I said, my voice flat as glass, "and I will end you." Kyle turned on me, eyes wild. "You're overreacting. He needs to learn his place." Evan whispered, "Mom," like it hurt to say. I pressed 3 numbers. The click sounded final. "Family doesn't get to break my child," I said. "Not in my house, not ever." The house didn't feel like a battleground yet. That's the part that still twists in my chest when I think about it, the way peace slipped in so quietly it fooled me. Kyle had dropped Mason off just after noon. No small talk, no stepping inside. Just a backpack shoved into my hands and a rushed, "We'll be back around 5. Brittany stayed in the SUV, engine-running sunglasses, hiding her eyes. She didn't wave. She didn't look at Evan when he appeared at the top of the stairs. The door closed. The engine faded down the street. And just like that, the tension leaked out of the walls. Mason kicked off his shoes and grinned wide and unguarded. "Aunt Lauren, I brought everything," he said, already unzipping his backpack. "The teacher said it has to survive a drop from the bleachers." Evan froze halfway down the steps. I saw it happen in real time, the calculation behind his eyes. "Is this safe? Am I allowed? Will this get me in trouble later?" "Mom," he asked, careful, "is it okay if I help? Not can I. Is it okay?" That nearly broke me. "Yes," I said, "you can help, if Mason wants help." Mason nodded so hard his hair bounced. "Please, I keep breaking the egg." Evan let out a breath he'd been holding for years. They took over the living room floor like they'd rehearsed it. Popsicle sticks lined up by length. Blue tape rolled into neat stacks. The ruler laid between them like a boundary neither crossed without asking. Evan didn't grab, didn't correct. He watched Mason tape crooked angles, waited for the structure to wobble, then asked quietly, "What do you think happens when it hits the ground?" Mason frowned. "Tried again." The dishwasher clicked off. The house settled into a low, steady hum. Sunlight crept across the rug, catching flecks of sawdust and turning them gold. For the first time in a long time, the air felt light. I stayed in the kitchen, wiping counters that were already clean. I wanted to watch without being obvious. I wanted to hold the moment still. When the first egg cracked, Mason groaned dramatic and loud. "Ugh, again." Evan didn't smile at his mistake. He smiled at the effort. "Okay," he said. "So what if we spread the weight more?" He sketched quickly on the back of a grocery receipt. Lines, arrows. Simple. Clear. Mason leaned in like it was a treasure map. "Wait," Mason said suddenly. "That's really smart." Evan's ears went pink. They worked like that for hours. Trial, failure, laughter, adjustment. Mason asked questions Evan didn't know the answer to, and Evan didn't pretend. He grabbed my laptop, typed fast, explained what he learned, like it mattered. I made grilled cheese and tomato soup, cut the crusts off because Mason asked. They ate standing at the counter, arguing about whether the egg deserved a name. By 4 o'clock, the structure stood taller than both of them, reinforced, balanced, wrapped tight in blue tape like armor. Mason stepped back, hands on his hips. "This is the coolest project in the whole grade," he said. "No one else is doing this." Evan shrugged, trying to play it down, but I saw his chest lift. "You did most of it." Mason spun toward me. "Aunt Lauren can." "Evan, come with me on Monday." Mrs. Henson said partners are allowed. The word partners hung in the air. I opened my mouth to hedge, to soften, to protect. Evan beat me to it. "I'd like that," he said. Not loud, not proud, certain. Mason threw his arms around him, squeezing until Evan laughed, really laughed sharp and bright like a sound he'd forgotten how to make. My throat tightened. For a few reckless minutes, I let myself imagine something dangerous. A future where this didn't have to be complicated, where two boys could be kids without keeping score, where family meant addition, not subtraction. At 4:57, Mason's phone buzzed on the counter. His shoulders dropped. Just a fraction. Enough that I noticed. "Mom's here," he said, already packing up. "Careful now. Quieter." Evan helped roll the structure, gently tying it with twine like it was fragile glass. He carried it to the door himself. When the SUV pulled up, Mason ran outside, waving the project over his head. "Look what we made," I stayed in the doorway. I didn't trust the air beyond it. Brittany got out first. She scanned the poster, Mason's face, Evan standing just behind him. Something dark passed over her mouth. Kyle followed, slower eyes, tired jaw clenched. Mason talked fast, too fast. Evan showed me how the impact works, and we tested it like 5 times, and it didn't break. And "We'll see it later," Brittany cut in. "Flat, sharp. Get your bag." Mason's smile flickered, but he obeyed. Evan lifted his hand in a small wave. Kyle nodded once. Didn't meet my eyes. As the car pulled away, I saw Brittany turn in her seat, studying the structure in Mason's lap. Her lips moved. He did this. Mason nodded eagerly. I closed the door. Evan was still brushing tape residue off his fingers, smiling to himself. "That was fun," he said. "Really fun." I pulled him into a hug so tight he squeaked. I held him there longer than necessary, like my body already knew what my mind hadn't accepted yet. Because peace like that never lasts around people who mistake jealousy for justice. And somewhere down the street, an engine revved hard fast like someone had made up their mind. The door didn't knock. It hit. One sharp slam that rattled the frame and sent the picture above the light switch crooked. The house flinched before I did. Evan jumped. His hand flew to his chest like he'd been struck there instead. I was already moving. The deadbolt snapped back hard, metal grinding on metal, and the door flew open so fast it smacked the wall. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of exhaust and anger. Kyle stormed through first. His face was red eyes, glassy, breathing loud and uneven like he'd been running. Not late, not tired, furious. Brittany followed 2 steps behind, sunglasses still on, though the sun was almost gone, arms crossed tight enough to turn her knuckles white. Mason was half standing on the couch, holding the egg structure up like a trophy. "Dad." It survived the drop. Kyle's hand shot out and tore it from him. Blue tape ripped, sticks cracked. The sound was violent and final, like bones breaking. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Kyle roared, shaking the ruined frame in Evan's direction. "You think you can just steal his work and play genius?" Evan froze. Not stiff, not defiant, small. He stepped back once, then again. His shoulder hit the cabinet with a dull thud that made my stomach drop. His eyes went wide, not with fear yet, but with shock. Like he couldn't believe this was happening in my house. "It was Mason's idea," Evan said. His voice didn't rise. That almost made it worse. "I just helped." Brittany laughed. A short, sharp sound with no humor in it. "Of course you did," she said. "You always have to be the smartest one in the room." Mason lunged forward. "Dad, stop," I asked him. Kyle shoved him aside without looking. That was the moment. Not the yelling, not the insults, the shove. Kyle grabbed Evan's hoodie at the collar and yanked him forward. Evan stumbled, feet scrambling on the rug arms, coming up too late. His back slammed into the counter. The drawer handles rattled. A glass tipped and shattered on the tile. Evan cried out. a sharp broken sound that punched straight through me. "Don't touch him," I said. My voice was low, too low. Kyle didn't hear it. He was already leaning in, breath hot with rage. "You think you're better than my kid? You think because your father's gone you get special treatment?" Brittany stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "A boy without a dad always needs someone else to prop him up," she said coolly. "Otherwise, he'd be nothing." Evan's face crumpled. Not in tears yet, in understanding. That look the moment a child realizes an adult means to hurt them burned into me. Mason screamed, "It's my project!" "He didn't steal it." Kyle raised his hand. That was the second something in me went cold. I crossed the room in 3 strides. My phone was already in my hand, screen lit. I grabbed Kyle's wrist midair, my fingers locking around bone and tendon like I'd been built for it. "Put it down," I said. He tried to pull free. I twisted harder. He gasped. Brittany reached for my shoulder nails out. "Lauren, you're being insane." I spun so fast she stumbled back into the fridge. Magnets clattered to the floor. "Touch me," I said, "and I swear you'll regret it." Evan whispered, "Mom." Mason was crying now, clinging to Evan's waist like an anchor. "Please, Dad, please." He was helping me. Kyle's eyes flicked to his son's face, then to Evan's white knuckles gripping his own sleeve, then to my phone. The rage drained out of him like a plug had been pulled. His arm sagged, his hand opened. I let go. I didn't wait to see if he'd lunge again. I raised my phone and dialed. 3 numbers. The click echoed in the sudden silence like a gunshot. 911. "What is your emergency?" "My brother just assaulted my 10-year-old son," I said loud and clear so everyone could hear. "We are at 1842 North Ashford, Boise. I need officers here now." Brittany sucked in a breath like I'd slapped her. "Hang up," she snapped. "This is family." Kyle found his voice shaking. "Lauren, come on." I lost my temper for a second. I looked him dead in the eye. "Family doesn't leave bruises," I said, "and you're done here." Sirens wailed somewhere far off. Brittany started shouting about blood, about loyalty, about how I was destroying everything over nothing. Her words washed over me, meaningless. I was already kneeling, pulling Evan into my arms. He buried his face in my shoulder and finally let himself sob. I held him tight, my phone still pressed to my ear, the operator asking questions I answered without looking away from my son, because the line had been crossed, and I had chosen. The sirens arrived before the shouting stopped. Red and blue lights slid across my living room walls, painting everything unreal like a crime scene before anyone admits it is one. A female officer stepped in first, hair pulled tight, calm eyes. She took in the broken sticks on the floor, the shattered glass. Evan curled into my side like he was trying to disappear. Her gaze dropped to his arm. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I need you to let me see him." Evan flinched when I loosened my hold. "Just a little. Enough." I lifted his sleeve. The skin was already changing color, angry red, bleeding into purple, finger-shaped, clear, indisputable. Kyle didn't say a word when the cuffs clicked around his wrists. He stared at the floor like it might open and swallow him. Brittany did all the talking too fast, too loud, words like misunderstanding and overreaction tumbling over each other. The officer didn't argue. She just nodded and wrote. "Procedure has a sound, pen on paper, radio static, the soft scrape of boots on tile. It doesn't care about family history or holiday dinners. It just records what happened. They told me we needed medical clearance. Standard, visible injury, no debate. The ride to the ER felt endless and too short at the same time. Evan sat rigid in the back seat, hands folded in his lap like he was afraid to touch anything. Mason rode beside him, crying in hiccups, whispering apologies that didn't belong to him. At St. Luke's, the triage nurse took one look and waved us forward. No waiting room, no clipboard, bright lights, white walls, the smell of antiseptic so sharp it stung my eyes. A pediatric doctor named Dr. Keller examined Evan carefully. No rushing, no assumptions. She pressed gently around the bruise, asked him to move his fingers his shoulder. He did everything she asked without complaint, tears sliding silently down his face. "Does it hurt when I do this?" she asked. "Yes," he said, honest, small. She photographed the injury from multiple angles, measured it, documented the color, the swelling, the pattern. Each click of the camera felt like a nail sealing something shut. "This will bruise more before it fades," she told me. "Ice, rest, pain management if needed." Then she lowered her voice. "The officers will want these images." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. A social worker arrived next. Clipboard, calm tone. She spoke to Evan alone first, a stuffed bear tucked under his arm. I watched through the glass, my nails digging into my palms as he answered her questions. He didn't embellish. He didn't minimize. "He grabbed me," Evan said. "I fell. It hurt." Mason told the same story in the hallway, over and over. "He didn't steal anything. My dad got mad." By the time we left, it was dark outside, the kind of dark that settles into your bones. Back at the house, the police explained next steps. Report filed, charges pending. A temporary no-contact order was recommended. "Do it," I said, before they finished the sentence. The officer looked at me for a long beat, then nodded. "That's wise." Kyle tried to call from the station that night. I let it ring. Brittany sent messages, long paragraphs, then short threats, then crying emojis. I blocked the number. Silence felt like oxygen. The next morning, I drove Evan to school myself. He wore a long-sleeved shirt, even though the day was warm. When the counselor called him into her office, he went without arguing. I sat across from her while she read the report. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "I'm so sorry." She said, "We'll put support in place." That mattered more. They adjusted his schedule, offered check-ins, made notes so no one would grab his arm or ask questions he didn't want to answer. They asked me if I wanted to involve the district's legal liaison. Yes, I said. Paperwork followed. Statements, copies, dates and times and signatures. Each page another layer of protection. Child Protective Services contacted me that afternoon, not accusatory, just thorough. They needed to document the incident, ensure Evan was safe, understand the family dynamic. I told the truth. All of it. The years of comments, the pressure, the shrinking. The caseworker nodded slowly. "You did the right thing calling," she said. "Many parents hesitate." I didn't. I said, "I won't." That evening my mother came over. She didn't knock. She used the spare key like she always had. Her face crumpled when she saw Evan's arm. "He did this?" she asked. I nodded. She didn't ask for explanations. She didn't defend anyone. She sat beside Evan, took his uninjured hand and held it like it was the most important thing in the world. The next day I filed for the no-contact order, temporary at first, then extended. The judge's voice was flat and professional as he read the conditions. Kyle would not contact Evan. Not directly, not through anyone else. Violation meant arrest. Brittany's attorney tried to argue intent. Accident, heat of the moment. The photographs shut him up. When the order was granted, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, not yet, but certainty. That night, Evan sat at the kitchen table doing homework. The bruise was darker now, blooming ugly and undeniable. He glanced up at me, hesitant. "Mom," he said, "did I do something wrong?" That question landed harder than any shove. "No," I said immediately. "You did everything right." He nodded, absorbing it like a foreign language. Outside, the porch light clicked on automatically as the sky darkened. The house felt different, quieter, not fragile, guarded. For the first time since my husband died, I understood something with painful clarity. Protection isn't loud. It's paperwork. It's photographs. It's forms filled out at midnight. It's standing in front of a judge and choosing your child even when your voice shakes. And I wasn't done choosing yet. The courtroom was colder than it needed to be. Not the temperature, the feeling. Fluorescent lights, hard benches, the low murmur of people who had learned how to wait for bad news. I sat in the second row with Evan beside me, his feet not quite touching the floor. He wore a navy sweater, sleeves pulled down past his wrists out of habit, even though the bruise had faded to a sickly yellow. Kyle stood at the defense table in a wrinkled suit that didn't fit him anymore. He looked smaller, not humbled, reduced. Brittany sat behind him, arms folded, jaw tight. She didn't look at Evan once. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Everyone sat. Procedure resumed. The prosecutor didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She played the door camera footage first. The angle wasn't perfect, but the sound was clear. The slam, the shouting, the moment Kyle surged forward, the shove, then the ER photos appeared on the screen. Close, clinical, finger-shaped bruising on a child's arm. No commentary followed. None was required. Kyle's attorney tried. Words like stress and misunderstanding floated briefly in the air before sinking under their own weight. He suggested Kyle had lost control for a moment. The judge looked down over her glasses. A moment she said flat is all it takes. Evan didn't move. He stared straight ahead, jaw set. When it was his turn to speak, he stood without prompting. "I didn't steal anything," he said. "No tears. No drama. I was helping." That was it. Kyle pleaded, apologized, promised therapy, promised change, promised to be better when he got out. The judge listened. Then she ruled. 12 months incarceration, anger management, 3 years supervised probation, a permanent no-contact order with my son and me. The gavel fell. Clean. Final. Kyle didn't look at me. He didn't look at Evan. He stared at the floor like it might absolve him. Outside the courtroom, Brittany exploded. "You did this!" she hissed at me, voice shaking. "You destroyed our family." I met her eyes for the first time since the night everything broke. "No," I said. "You watched it happen." She opened her mouth, closed it, turned away. 3 days later, Kyle lost his job. 20 years gone in one email. HR language, polite, irreversible. A week after that, Brittany filed for divorce. She told people she needed to protect Mason from the chaos. She told people I was vindictive. She told people Kyle wasn't really like that. The court told a different story. Custody was temporary at first. Supervised visits, evaluations, reports. Brittany missed 2 appointments in the first month. Showed up late to another. Blamed traffic. The judge noticed. Mason didn't ask to visit his father. Not once. My mother made a decision the night Brittany came to pack Kyle's things. She met her at the door with one suitcase already zipped. "You lost the right to call yourself his advocate," my mother said calmly. "Not when you stood there and let it happen." Brittany cried, begged, promised therapy, promised change. My mother closed the door. Mason stayed. The spare room became his, fresh paint, new bedding, a quiet place that didn't demand performance. He stopped flinching when adults raised their voices. He started sleeping through the night. Evan watched all of this without comment. He asked questions later, private ones, about safety, about rules, about what would happen next. I answered every one. We changed schools at the start of the next term, a smaller program, strong academics, clear policies. The head of the school called me personally. "We've followed Evan's work," she said. "We'd like to offer a full academic scholarship." Evan didn't smile when I told him. He nodded, thought about it, then said, "Okay." 2 weeks in, he joined the science club. A month later, he stopped wearing long sleeves. The house changed shape around us. We sold the old couch, bought a round table, no corners. My mother came over for dinner 3 nights a week. Mason stayed most weekends. The sound of laughter returned, not forced, not careful. Kyle wrote letters from prison. Apologies, regret, promises. Every envelope came back unopened. Returned to sender, stamped in red. Brittany fought for more custody. The judge reviewed the record, the footage, the photos, the fact that she never intervened, supervised visits only. She stopped fighting after that. In April, Evan stood on a stage with a medal hanging heavy around his neck. The auditorium rose in a standing ovation. I stayed seated until he looked at me. Then I stood. Mason cheered loudest, jumped up and down until an usher asked him to sit. Later that night, Evan sat at the kitchen table, flipping his medal over and over in his hands. "Mom," he said, not looking up. "Can I stop pretending I'm smaller?" Now I reached across the table and took his hand. "Yes." He nodded, satisfied. There was no reunion, no forgiveness arc, no last-minute redemption. Some breaks don't heal. They end. We planted new shrubs along the fence line that spring, thick ones, the kind that grow fast and don't ask permission. The porch light stayed on at night. The door camera stayed active. Not because we were afraid, because we were prepared. Family is not who shares your blood, it's who keeps your child safe. And we chose that every single day without regret.